Cuccioli is a versatile stage performer, creating roles in new musicals while also playing to critical acclaim in Shakespearean tragedies. Recently, he created the role of Norman Rhodes in Bruce Hornsby's Broadway-bound new musical, SCK-BSTD. Another new musical of his, Cut Man, has just been announced for a run at the Goodspeed Opera House. On Broadway, he played Javert in Les Miserables and the title role in Jekyll and Hyde, a dynamic performance that garnered him a Tony nomination, Drama Desk, and Outer Critics Circle Award. Off-Broadway, he received the Outer Critics Circle Award for And the World Goes Round. I have had the pleasure of working in 2 shows with Bob, one in which he strangled me to death, and one where I played his mother. I'm not sure what the connection is. Bob will be reading Salt by Sherman Alexie. Please welcome Bob Cuccioli.
Mona, are you alone here? I asked. I didn't want to know the answer.
No. Well, yes, I suppose. But my Henry, he's buried in the backyard.
Henry?
My cat, my beloved cat.
And then she told me the story about Henry and his death. Poor cat, just as widowed as Mona, had fallen into a depression after her husband's death. Cat and wife mourning together.
You know, she said, I read once that grief can cause cancer. I think that's true. At least it is for cats. Because that's what my Henry had, cancer of the blood. Cats get it all the time. They see a lot of death. They do.
And so she, dependent on the veterinarian's kindness and charity, had arranged for her Henry to be put down.
What's that big word for killing cats? She asked me.
Euthanasia, I said.
Yes, that's it. That's the word. It's kind of a pretty word, isn't it? It sounds pretty, don't you think?
Yes.
Such a pretty word for such a sad and lonely thing, she said.
Yes, it is, I said.
You can name your daughter Euthanasia and nobody would even notice it.
I suppose, I said.
Euthanasia, she said. It would be a beautiful name for a beautiful girl.
Shit. I imagined Princess Euthanasia, daughter of Tsar Nicholas, riding her pony over the snowy Siberian plains.
My cat was too sick to live, Mona said.
And then she told me how she'd held Henry as the vet injected him with the death shot. And oh, how she cried when Henry's heart and breath slowed and stopped. He was gone. 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 And so she brought him home, carried him into the backyard, and laid him beside the hole she paid a neighbor boy to dig. That neighbor boy was probably 50 years old.
I prayed for a long time, she said. I wanted God to know that my cat deserved to be in heaven. I didn't want Henry to be in cat heaven. No, not at all. I wanted Henry to go and find my husband. I want them both to be waiting for me.
And so she prayed for hours. You can tell the exact, who can tell the exact time in such moments? And then she kneeled beside her cat, and that was painful because her knees were so old, so used, like the ancient sedan in the garage. And she pushed her Henry into the grave and poured salt over him.
I read once, she said, that the Egyptians used to cover dead bodies with salt. It helps people get to heaven quicker. That's what I read.
When she poured the salt on her cat, A few grains dropped and burned in his eyes.
And let me tell you, she said, I almost fell in that grave when my Henry meowed. Just a little one. I barely heard it, but it was there. I put my hand on his chest and his little heart was beating. Just barely, but it was beating. I couldn't believe it. The salt had brought him back to life. Shit.
I thought, the damn vet hadn't injected enough death juice into the cat. Shit, shit, shit! Oh, that's awful, I said.
No, I was happy. My cat was alive because of the salt. So I called my doctor.
You mean you called your vet?
No, I called my doctor, and Marishi, and told him that it was a miracle that the salt brought Henry back to life.
I wanted to scream at her senile hope. I wanted to run to Lois's grave and cover her with salt so she'd rise, replace me, and be forced to hear this story. This was her job. This was her responsibility.
And let me tell you, the old woman said, my doctor was amazed too. So he said he'd call the vet and they'd both be over. And it wasn't too long before they were both in my home. Imagine 2 doctors on house call. That doesn't happen anymore, does it?
It happens when 2 graceful men want to help a fragile and finite woman. And so she told me that the doctors went to work on the cat. And oh, how they tried to bring him back all the way. But there just wasn't enough salt in the world to make it happen. So the doctors helped her sing and pray and bury her Henry. Oh, and yes, Dr. Marishi had sworn to her that he tried to help her husband with salt.
But Dr. Marishi said he poured salt on my husband, but it didn't work. There are some people too sick to be salted.